checked some of my sources that I have here of known wrecks off the East Coast, and there was no known wreck at that exact position.
Finding a World War II submarine in the wrong ocean is like finding a plane crash on the moon. It simply does not make sense. When divers finally cut into the lost German U-boat known as U-869, they expected to find a typical wreck. Instead, they found a time capsule filled with things that should not exist.
I went down, penetrated inside the wreck, and I brought back 2 bowls. That proved that the wreck was a German U-boat from World War II.
From secret intelligence books to propaganda meant for American soil, this discovery has left every historian scratching their head. This submarine was a ghost that refused to stay dead, and what it was carrying changes history as we know it. Ghostly Wolf of the Atlantic. During World War II, the Atlantic Ocean became one of the most dangerous places on Earth. German submarines known as U-boats hunted Allied ships carrying supplies, troops, and equipment across the water. These underwater vessels operated in secret, striking without warning and disappearing back into the depths. The U-boat campaign was one of the most effective military strategies used by Germany during the war. The German Navy sent hundreds of these subs into the ocean to cut off the lines between North America and Europe. They targeted big ships, military boats, and transport groups. Records show that these subs sank thousands of ships during the war years. Every hit made it harder for the Allies to get the materials they needed to fight. Among these many submarines was one called U-869. This boat was a special model built for long trips. It was nearly 250 feet long and had 6 tubes for shooting torpedoes. The design allowed it to travel across the whole Atlantic and stay in waters very far from home. The German Navy chose Captain Helmut Neuerberg to lead the crew. He was an experienced man who knew the sea well. By the end of 1944, the war was going badly for Germany. Allied forces were moving in from all sides, but the Navy kept sending subs out on missions. In late 1944, they ordered U-869 to start its first real patrol. The plan was for the sub to go to the Gibraltar area. This spot was very important because ships had to pass through a narrow path to get from the Atlantic to the Mediterranean. German leaders thought the sub could do a lot of damage there, but the German military was falling apart by then. Radios failed and orders got mixed up. Some leaders gave one command while others said something else. Many researchers now think the sub got new orders while it was already at sea. These new plans were never written down correctly. On February 11, 1945, 2 American ships reported a fight with a German sub near Gibraltar. They thought they hit it and sank it. Military leaders marked it as a win and moved on. They assumed the sub they destroyed was U-869. The German Navy was in chaos and could not prove them wrong. So the official record said the sub sank off the coast of Africa. 56 men were on that boat and all were listed as lost. No one ever saw them again or heard a call for help. The sub just disappeared and became a name on a long list of deaths. For over 40 years, this was the only story people knew. Families were told their loved ones died in the Mediterranean, but there was a big problem because no one ever found the wreck in that area. War records are often full of mistakes because things happen so fast in battle. Technology back then was not very good at tracking things under the water. Also, many German papers were destroyed as the war ended. The last radio call from the sub actually came from the North Atlantic, which is thousands of miles away from where it was supposed to be. After that call, there was only silence. The ocean seemed to have swallowed the boat whole without leaving a trace. But the real story was hiding where no one thought to look. Silent Sea Tomb. The ocean floor near New Jersey is a massive graveyard for ships. Hundreds of wrecks sit in the sand for all kinds of reasons, like storms or accidents. For people who love to dive, this area is full of things to find. In the summer of 1991, a group of divers started looking for new wrecks using special sonar tools. The team included John Chatterton and Richie Kohler, who were both very good at deep diving. They knew the water off New Jersey was very dangerous with strong pulls and water so cold it could freeze you. They were about 60 miles away from the coast when their tools found something strange. It was sitting 230 feet deep. The image showed a long, thin shape that looked like a torpedo. It was clearly made by people and looked very old. The divers decided they had to go down and see it for themselves. Diving that deep is not like diving in a pool. You need special gas to breathe, and you have to be very careful about the pressure. If you come up too fast, you can get very sick or even die. On their first trip down, the water was very murky. They could only see a few feet in front of them. The wreck was covered in old fishing nets and sand, but they soon saw that it was definitely a submarine. It was a big one, not a small boat. This was a huge shock because no record said any sub had ever sunk in that spot. They looked all over the hull for a name or a number but found nothing. The metal was rusty and covered in sea life. The top part of the sub was smashed in and the whole thing was slowly falling apart. The team called it the Yoo-Hoo because they had no idea what it was. They promised to keep coming back until they figured it out. Every dive was a battle against the deep. They could only stay at the bottom for a few minutes before they had to spend hours slowly coming back up. Bad weather often stopped their trips and the currents were sometimes too strong to handle. But they did not give up. Over many trips, they started finding small things inside the wreck. They found gauges with German words and pipes that were made in Germany. This proved it was a German U-boat, but they still did not know which one. They found plates and bowls with the German Navy symbol on them. Finally, they found something that changed everything. It was a simple butter knife. It was rusty, but on the handle, someone had carved a name. The name was Hornberg. This was a huge lead. A name meant they could look through lists of sailors. They searched every record they could find from the war. They finally found a man named Georg Hornberg. He was a sailor who was supposed to be on U-869. This was the first real proof of the sub's identity. They also found parts of the engine with serial numbers on them. Those numbers matched the factory records for that specific boat. After 6 years of risky work, the divers proved the history books were wrong. In 1997, the Navy admitted the wreck was indeed U-869. But how did it end up so far from home? Broken steel hull. Now that everyone knew the sub was U-869, a new mystery started. How did it sink? It was supposed to be near Africa, but it was in America. Historians had to figure out what happened to the boat in its final moments. They looked at the damage on the wreck and checked old war reports. Two main ideas came up. The first idea is that the sub was destroyed by its own torpedo. German weapons back then were very smart, but they broke easily. Sometimes a torpedo would be fired and then turn in a big circle. This was called a circle runner. The weapon would loop around and hit the very sub that shot it. This actually happened to several boats during the war. Many captains were terrified of this mistake. People who believe this idea say the crew might have been practicing or trying to hit a ship when the torpedo turned back on them. They would have had no time to move out of the way. The explosion would have ripped the boat open instantly. Researchers found no records of any battles in that area at that time, which makes this idea seem likely. The wreck also shows a lot of damage that looks like it came from an explosion very close to the hull. The second idea is that American ships sank it. Two ships called the Howard D. Crow and the Coiner were in the area in February 1945. They reported fighting a sub and using depth charges, which are underwater bombs. After the war, the Navy said those ships sank a sub, but they did not know which one. Even today, the Navy says this is what happened to U-869. But there are problems with this story too. The spot where the ship said they fought the sub is not the same spot where the wreck is sitting. Also, the sub still had several torpedoes ready to fire. If it was in a big fight, why didn't the crew shoot back? When divers looked inside, they saw that the front of the sub was crushed inward. This usually happens from a very fast and huge shock. The most chilling part was what they didn't find. No one had even tried to open the emergency doors. It seems the crew died so fast they never even knew they were in trouble. Whatever happened, it was over in a heartbeat. Both ideas have some proof, but neither one explains everything perfectly. The mystery of the sub's final moments is still a topic of big debate. Wait, there is one big problem with the official story. Secret mission files. For over 30 years after finding the sub, divers kept going down to see it. But as technology got better, they could see things they missed before. In late 2024, a new team went down with better lights and cameras. They wanted to get into a part of the sub that had been sealed shut since it sank. This area was blocked by twisted metal and rust. It was very dangerous because the whole thing could collapse on a diver at any moment. They moved very slowly and carefully. Finally, they broke through into a room that had been dry for 80 years. Inside, the water had not ruined everything yet. It was like a room frozen in time. They found lockers and crates that were still standing. Some of the boxes still had tight seals. The things they found inside were not what you would find on a normal combat ship. They found a fancy officer's dagger with special carvings on the blade. It was the kind of weapon only high-ranking leaders would carry. Right next to it was a crate holding a perfect dress uniform. It still had the eagle and the red armband with the swastika. This was very strange because you do not usually bring a parade uniform on a dirty submarine mission unless you plan on landing somewhere. But it got even weirder. Under some papers, they found a box of flyers written in English. These were not for the crew. They were propaganda meant for Americans. They were designed to make people angry and stop supporting the war. This suggests the sub was not just hunting ships. It might have been on a spy mission to land people or papers in the United States. They also found a secret code book used by the German intelligence service. These books were the most protected secrets in the military. If the sub was carrying a spy team, it would explain why it was so close to the New Jersey shore. The Discovery team did not tell the public about these finds right away because it is very sensitive. Finding Nazi items on a sub near New York is a big deal. It changes how we think about the end of the war. Maybe Germany was trying one last desperate move to attack America from the inside. The evidence in that hidden room shows a story that the military never wanted us to know. If this sub was part of a secret spy plan, it means there might be other wrecks out there with even bigger secrets. We are left wondering if the crew even knew what they were carrying or if they were just pawns in a bigger game. Do you think there are more secret spy submarines sitting off the coast of America that we have not found yet? It makes you wonder what else is hiding in the dark water. If you enjoyed this mystery, make sure to like and subscribe for more deep sea stories.